Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Karen Cozier-Phillips. C-News is live at noon. Topping the news at this time, crime was at the top of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's agenda on Sunday night as he rolled out government's plans and focus areas for the year 2018 in a televised broadcast. Dr. Rowley said, notwithstanding the fact that there is significant work still to be done to bring crime under control, 2017 saw the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service making significant strides towards this end.
Which last year saw 1,064 firearms of all description and 18,000 rounds of ammunition confiscated. Record numbers for the Caribbean, yet we face almost record killings. Additionally, over 12,000 persons were arrested last year. We must and we will win this war on crime.
And with more murders than days for the year thus far, the Prime Minister added winning this war on crime requires work from all corners of the society.
With leadership and effective action all around, from the home to the parliament, from the schoolyard to the police station, we will overcome the violent few who are determined to make hell out of this paradise which we have inherited as our homeland.
And the Prime Minister also touched on rogue elements within the public sector, being sternly warned government will not tolerate corruption. The words of caution came during his first address to the nation last evening. Dr. Rowley said his government intends to beef up its fight against public service corruption in 2018.
We have made significant progress in identifying white-collar criminals and are tracking and holding to account individuals and entities that made fast and loose with public trust and public monies. A few of them are already on their way to the courthouse to answer for their dastardly actions.
Leader of the opposition, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, is expected to announce this afternoon whether the UNC will support the choice of Justice Paul Weeks as the country's next president. Mrs. Persad-Bissessar is holding a news conference at 1:15 p.m. Last Friday, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley met with Mrs. Persad-Bissessar to seek consensus on Justice Weeks for the presidency. At that time, the opposition leader said she had to discuss the nomination with her caucus and would advise the Prime Minister accordingly. The deadline for the submission of nominations is today, January 8th. Mrs. Persad-Bissessar said she had indicated to the Prime Minister that the opposition was keen on working with the government to move the process forward in the interest of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Well, school reopens today, but the Presbyterian Secondary Schools Board of Education is saying they're concerned with the prolonged delay in the release of government funds. In a media release, the board says the funds are needed to operate their 5 schools. Chairman of the board, Christian Duku, says the ancillary staff, such as cleaners, are the ones who are bearing the brunt of the lack of finances.
Several months, like about 4 months or so, that they didn't receive this allocation for the janitorial staff, for the ancillary staff and so on. So what they had to actually do is borrow money from the PTA, from the Alumni Association and things like that, ask them to pay. And in some cases, they have to borrow and so on to meet these expenses.
He says it is not only the Presbyterian board which is feeling the pinch, and adds their developmental projects as well are all in jeopardy.
It would be other boards as well. The thing is, we attended a meeting of all the denominational boards about a month ago, and they were all saying the same thing, that they starved for funding and so on, and they really don't know how to make ends meet now, and it's so unfair. The most vulnerable are affected, these janitors and so on, Now, we were talking about projects that we had embarked on, for example, like SAGS had a science wing started for 5 years ago, and the work stopped over the last 2 years or so because no funding and so on too.
Mr. Duku says in 2018 they are celebrating 150 years of Presbyterian educational service to Trinidad and Tobago, and they are looking forward to their funding being disbursed by the end of this week. If they do not receive their funds, Mr. Duku says further action will be contemplated. The president of the Route 2 Maxi Taxi Association is calling on government to help speed up the process for Maxi Taxi drivers to acquire CNG vehicles. During an address to the nation last evening, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley described as unacceptable Maxi Taxi drivers who use CNG but raised their fare prices following last September's increase in prices at the pump. But Association President Linus Phillips says the Prime Minister's statements were not exactly a true representation of the situation. In a phone interview with C News, Mr. Phillips said on his route, less than 1% of Maxi Taxi drivers operate CNG vehicles. He says this is due to the unavailability of foreign exchange to import the vehicles into the country. And it's in this regard the Maxi Taxi Association's president is asking government to step in and offer assistance to have more CNG vehicles on the roads. This is the C News Live report at noon. Remember, you can keep up to date with all the latest news on our website at ctvtt.com, or you can check out our Facebook and Twitter pages at C News Live. While residents of 6th Company Road, Moruga are up in arms today as they protest losing their homes to a massive caving in of the road in their district. Kizzy Scipio demanded she get a house today after being promised one by MP for the area, Dr. Lovell Francis. She said she was living in a room loaned to her by her neighbor, but she was not willing to leave things the way they stood. She and other residents protested today by burning tires and other debris. To other news now, Minister of Public Utilities Robert LaHunt describes Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's address last evening as comprehensible and honest.
Factual. I found it to be honest. I found it to be very comprehensive. And actually, contrary to what is being said, I found there was a lot of hope in the budget for us to recognize where the country is going. I think he spent a lot of time in giving an indication as to where we will probably land in 2020 over this period.
Minister LaHunt said as it relates to the Prime Minister's stance on crime and criminality in the country, some people might take it out of context.
A lot of times people look at the address and don't take the address in context. And I say that the Prime Minister's address was factual and comprehensive because I think he took great pains for us to understand where we are. I think he acknowledged the fact that over the past 2 years there were certain measures that were required.
The Presbyterian Church is celebrating its 150th anniversary in Trinidad and Tobago this year. At a ceremony on Sunday marking the event, Minister of Planning Camille Robinson-Regis said the contribution of the church was immense. She recalled the greats who have come from the Presbyterian community.
I am particularly happy to recall, for example, during the time of my own involvement in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago, to have had the benefit of the wisdom and erudition of Reverend Daniel T. Luxing, Reverend Emerson Sunarine, Cyril Paul, and Joy Abdul, to name just a few.
He emphasized the benefits that she as well as the country has gained from the contribution of these wise men and women.
I have had the benefit of working with them when I served as a senator, and they have all made significant contributions to the politics and to the education and to the life of Trinidad and Tobago. And I take this opportunity on behalf of the government to thank the church for allowing them to serve in that capacity.
Mrs. Robinson-Regis said the government congratulates and thanks the Presbyterian Church for its contribution to the development of Trinidad and Tobago, particularly in the realm of education. The weather forecast now. This afternoon there will be generally sunny conditions with brief light showers likely in a few areas. Tonight is expected to be mostly clear and cool. Seas at this times are moderate with waves up to 2.5 meters in open waters and less than 1 meter in sheltered areas. The forecast maximum temperature at Piarco is expected to be 30 degrees Celsius, while at Crown Point it will be 31 degrees Celsius. Minister of Sport Darrell Smith has praised the National Association of Athletics Administrators, calling them innovators. The minister had some good news for track and field, as he said his ministry hopes to start upgrades to the respective stadia in the country soon.
On my back for a while, right, to get the renovation to a number of facilities, and I'm pleased to announce that working with Eurocot, the sport company and the ministry, that we have finally pulled all the figures and maths together to take a note to cabinet to see how we could get the Hazy Crawford renovated, the Jean Pair renovated, the Atto Bolan renovated. We already started work on the Dwight Chalk, that was approved, and that's going to be starting this month, and the Mani Rajam Stadium, to ensure that the athletes, the track and field athletes, will have the proper facilities to train and practice.
He also announced a new incentive policy for athletes.
It's for the first time in our history we have tabled in front of the cabinet, once the national policy is approved, is a reward and incentive policy for the athletes of Trinidad and Tobago, where before you go, wherever you're training for, you'll know how in terms it's going to be calibrated with regards to reward, because for two.
And that's the CNews Report at noon. I'm Karen Cozier-Phillip. Remember, for up-to-date and breaking news throughout the day, you can visit the CNews website at ctvtt.com. Do have a good afternoon.